We'll call to order the EDA meeting here at City Hall, Thursday, October 5th, 2023, 7:30. Please call the roll.
Bevins, Beezer,
Here.
Grasula,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Kirsch,
Here.
O'Day,
Here.
Sandy, Yeager.
Yes. Thank you. First item here is approval of our agenda.
Move to approve, Johnson.
Got a motion to approve. Is there a
Second. Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can I pull out the meeting minutes?
Absolutely. How far down would you like to see here? Oh, just
Pull them off to consent.
Yeah,
pull them
just
off
pull.
consent?
Yep.
Okay, very good. All right, so we are going to make a motion here to pull off the minutes from our consent calendar. We need a second on that?
Generally not, just,
Okay, very good. A voice vote?
sure.
Okay, let's have a voice vote on the removal of the minutes.
Are we voting on 3, approving the
Well, I
agenda
thought we
or
were doing
consent
the
calendar?
agenda first and then moving on to the consent calendar, but,
Oh,
Yeah, generally on the consent vote, we'd pull it, Tony, but
oh, yeah, we can do it that
okay,
way.
very good.
Yep,
So let's just
sorry.
go back to the approval of the agenda first, and then we'll take on the consent calendar second. Do we have a motion?
we got a motion
Yeah,
in a
a
second.
motion and a second on the approval of the agenda. Any further discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Bevins,
We can do this by voice vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Very good. We'll move on to now the consent calendar, and we have a motion to pull the approval of the, or pull the minutes. No discussion on that?
I don't think so. Generally, it's just discretion of the chair.
Very good. So we'll just go ahead and pull those minutes from there. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar minus the minutes?
I just had a question on the Swanson Hascam report, but I can just bring it up when they're presenting later on in the agenda, so I'm fine to just
Okay,
ask during that time as well.
all right. Still looking for a motion.
I'd move to approve the consent calendar sans the minutes.
Very good.
Second.
Motion and a second. This will be voted by roll call. Please, James, call the roll.
Bevins, Beezer,
Here.
Grasula,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kirsch,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Sandy, Yeager.
And yes. Okay, got it.
Sorry.
All right, we got our consent calendar. Whew, all right, we've made it through the first portion here. Let's move on to item number 5. This is our unfinished business. First item is 5A. This is the approval of the reallocation of the deed Main Street grant funds. This is found on page 19. Your
Parliamentary inquiry.
Excuse me?
I have a
we talk about the
question.
minutes?
Yes,
Can we talk, since I pulled out the meeting minutes, do you want to talk about it now or you want to talk about it later?
It doesn't matter to me. Is now a good time?
Oh, it's just a clerical item. I was not here in September and my name was listed as being in attendance.
Okay.
So just clerical.
All right, so maybe we can just amend the minutes to have that and then adopt them as they were presented.
Yep.
All right, very good. So would you like to make a formal motion on that?
Sure. Motion to remove my name from the September meeting minutes since I was not in attendance.
And approve the rest.
All right, and we approve the rest. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, hold same sign. All right, got our minutes cleaned up as well. Okay, now we can move on. Approval of reallocation of the deed Main Street grant funds. This is page 19. James will be kicking this one off, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So since the reallocation of funds at the June 8th EDA meeting, there's a couple businesses that either declined funding or didn't use all their funding. Big J's was unable to move forward with their expansion project, which was in the award amount of $15,000. Teeny Bubble's original award was $150,000, but was only able to use $69,766.80. Leaving the remainder of $80,233.20 for reallocation. Also, Lakes Chiropractic has a remainder of $1,896.49 of grant funding from their project that was already completed in 2023. So that leaves a total of $97,129.69 to be reallocated to alternative projects. So the EDA subcommittee did meet on September 28th to review which projects were either underfunded, had already been completed, or are in progress, and decided to give additional funding to the YMCA in the amount of $50,000, and then also recommended $47,129.69 to go to Severson Porter Law Office. And I can certainly answer any questions that the board has.
Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Does anyone have any questions for James? Staff? All right, very good. So I guess at this time, we'll just open this for any discussion or comment on the reallocation here. Mr. Johnson was a subcommittee member, and so either he or I'm sure could answer any further questions on the dialogue that took place here. But just a quick summary, James pretty much wrapped it up. We met and just kind of looked through our three options of what were potential participants that would be potential recipients of the reallocation, and just kind of worked a math, basically, Mr. Johnson, of who got what, and we just kind of settled on this was about the right amount for each one of these, kind of proportionally to before. But any other questions or any comments on this? Yes, please.
When we vote on this, are we voting each individual separately, or are we voting it together? Because I have to abstain from Severson Porter.
Well, because we have an abstention from one, I'll just go ahead and get them separately then.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So if there's no further comment, then what I'll do is we'll take the Brainerd YMCA at 50,000, and we'll go ahead and look for a motion and vote on that one first.
Motion.
We have
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both saying aye. Very good. And now our second recipient here would be Severson Porter Law. That's in the amount of $47,129.69. With one abstention, do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
A motion
A second.
and a second. Any further discussion? And we'll do this one by roll call, please.
Bevins, Beezer,
I have to abstain.
Grasula,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yep.
Kirsch,
Yes.
O'Day,
Yes.
Sandy, Yeager.
Yes, very good. And that motion carries as well. All right, thank you very much, and we'll be looking to get those funds out. Exciting. Item number 5B, this will be the recommendation to remove section 435 from the city code pertaining to the manufactured home park closings. This is found on page 20 in your packet. Mr. Kramvik.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So after reviewing this from a staff perspective and doing a full review of Section 435, I did notice at the very end of the code, it did have an expiration date on it, which is uncommon for a code. I think it was a 9-year, essentially, that it was in effect. So, in reviewing that, Section 435 would not pertain if somebody did want to perform a park closing. So I just wanted to update the EDA on that aspect. I know if it was in effect, there would be confusion between state statute and how it would relate to our code. So really, staff recommendation on Section 435 at this time is to essentially do no action with it, and then potentially the city council may authorize a codification of the code, and at that time would just remove that for redundancy purposes. And then essentially this would just rely on state statute, which state statute does have language in it that I think would override any city municipality anyways. So staff is looking at essentially no action at this time, and then further working with the property owners of Westwood Mobile Home Park to get that on the EDA website.
Very good. Thank you, James. Anybody have any questions for staff? Any comments, anything? Yes, please, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to commend the City Council of 2005. I think all legislation should have drop dead dates and have to be revoted in. So that was very smart of them to do it for just 10 years.
Very good, Mr. Johnson. I was going to say the exact same thing. And perhaps a look into the playbook for some of the things we do.
Yep.
So, very good. Any other? Yes, please.
I just have a question regarding putting this on the website. Did you guys actually have some contact with the property owners?
Yep, and they were interested.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Anything else? All right, with no other questions, we're going to move on to item 5C. This is an update on our framework progress. This is found on page 21 in your packet, and this will be James also.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I won't go through every one of these, but just kind of highlight a few of the things that were discussed at our quarterly meeting. Visit Brainerd and SHC. I know we'll be kind of discussing the collaboration of the final website and putting those two together. SHC has kind of worked on some of our Brainerd properties to highlight zoning potential issues or things that are good for the site. Also what zoning district it's in. So they've created essentially a page for each one of our Brainerd properties that we do want to market. And then Visit Brainerd's kind of been working on the main website, so this would be a collaboration, put everything together at the end of the year. Also, SHC and Bladeck have discussed creating the Business Roundtable Breakfast and chose a potential date at the end of October, so that'll be coming up at the end of October most likely. Also, city staff will continue to set up BRE visits. I did send one email out. If any, when I do send these out, if you are interested, let me and Tony know in case we do have to notify of a quorum for any of these visits. And then also, city staff has been working on updating the downtown as well as the 210 district for businesses. So we've also been working on that. And I can answer any other questions that the board may have.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Grambic. Any questions for James? Very good. And, all right. With that, we're going to, we're just rolling right through today. It's good. 5D here, this is the approval of the final logo and slogan for the EDA. This is found on page 26. I'm just going to jump right to Mary here, please. Thank you.
Good morning. So after the last meeting, we took a look at a bunch of different options, and there was kind of landing on essentially this one here with the light behind the water tower. And I talked to the designer about some of the feedback in terms of should we take the light beams off or not. We did look at that. I'm not going to present it because it's not as good. If anybody feels real strongly about it, then we can certainly come back to it, but it gets real complicated in a hurry if we start getting into that level of minutia. So the main difference here that you're going to see between the different versions are economic development with the yellow lines or economic development authority. And so that's kind of what you want to be looking at on page 1 and page 2, and then the different taglines. And so the 3 different taglines that we were presenting, one is still the first one that we had the first time, which is our future is bright, let's shine, and then continuing with the theme of building on all of the optimism and the light that's happening in the community right now. The second version was building a brighter tomorrow. We kind of brainstormed around some of the different words and word choices and the themes that we've been thinking about here. And then the third tagline choice is our future is bright. Just a simplified version, take the let's shine out. I think some people thought that might be a little too kitschy. And so those are basically the main changes. So for consideration here, before we get into the tagline discussion, I guess I'd like to know how people feel. And we did do black and white versions. We looked at it in grayscale. We went down to a small size to see if economic development authority, since it's so long, is still readable. And all of the design integrity is there. And so we wouldn't give you something that if we had to shrink it down, you couldn't read it. So it's still easier to just see it in a big version. But my main and first question for you is, do you want the version of economic development with the 2 lines, or do you want economic development authority all spelled out? And Kevin, I don't know if you want to.
Nope. Does
vote?
anyone feel that they are unprepared to answer that question right now if we just went down the line? All right, let's do it. So the question here is whether we're going with economic development or economic development authority. I'll start it. Whoever wants to start first, please.
I like economic development.
Okay.
I like economic development.
Economic Development Authority.
I like economic development.
I like Economic Development Authority.
O'Day, it's up to you.
It's up to you.
Oh, are you?
No, I'm not saying. No.
No, you're not
I
tied.
wasn't keeping count.
Nope. That's good. What do you like?
I like economic development. At first, I was kind of confused by it, but the more I think about it, the more it simplifies it. I think I like it better.
Very good. And we went 4-2, so we're moving forward with economic development. What's next?
All right. Then the next question is, which tagline?
All right, very good. So we've got
So-
3 taglines here in front of us. Does anyone here feel that one of these 3 will not work? Mr. Johnson?
I'm still not a fan of let's shine.
Very good. So here's what I'm going to do. Do you feel like one of these will not work?
The one that says "Let's shine." Well,
Okay, very good.
it would work, but I don't like it. Yeah.
All right, here's what we're going to do. Everyone pick out the one that you like, and we're going to pass it forward, and then we're just going to tally up what got passed forward out of the three, and we'll see what we got. The tiebreaker will be Mary Devine Johnson, since she put in all the work, in such case that we have a tie. So if you would all pick out the one that you like at this point, and then pass it forward, well, and you can put them face down if you want.
So we're gonna switch that with this one.
Oh,
Oh,
card played is a card played, man.
Depends on who you're playing with. That sounds terrible. Okay. We have 3 for Our Future is Bright, 2 for Building a Brighter Tomorrow, and 1 for Our Future is Bright, Let's Shine.
our future is bright. Very good.
Okay.
Teamwork.
Any other questions, comments, feedback that you, general consensus is
The
all
only thing I
right?
would say is now we've got our logo, all this can be pushed forward on pretty much everything, so
Yep.
exciting. Now we can start seeing it on signs and.
I don't know if you
all
need to
sorts
do
of
an
stuff.
official adoption or if that's it.
We'll do an official adoption.
Just say before we officially adopt, I would have switched, building a, what is it, what it was?
Building a Brighter
it's so
Tomorrow.
forgettable.
Building a brighter tomorrow with, building a brighter future, combining those two.
I don't think it would have made a difference, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's too late.
Honest
Right.
to goodness,
Yeah.
we looked at
The old switcheroo.
hundreds of EDA taglines, and they're all some version of the same thing.
Right.
So,
Well, thank you so much for your
All
time
right.
and your designer's time putting this forward and working through it. I feel like we got
Very
something
good.
great, so let
Good
the
job.
branding begin. Sweatshirts will be on sale on, anyways.
put them on the website. There we go.
Okay, very good,
Thanks,
thank you.
everyone.
And, all right, that concludes our unfinished business. We're going to move forward with item 6. This is our new business, and first up is a presentation of the industrial park concept plans. This is found on page 27 of your packet, and we're going to just kick this right over to Jennifer, please.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry that I was late. Took an inadvertent tour this morning of all of Brainerd, Motley, everywhere. I was everywhere. So anyway, before you this morning, not this evening, we are taking a look at a couple of concept plans for the industrial priority areas that we've identified. So I basically put together just a quick presentation to kind of walk us through what was in the memo, which should have been in your packets, and then we actually have the concept plans for us to take a look at. So if we could go to the next slide. So just to sort of set us up, there's a couple of things to consider as we go into the concepts, just from a market perspective. The first is that we know that we've got some recent comps with what's gone on with your sales in the TC Industrial Park in particular. So those provide us with some good reference in terms of what pricing might be in the area for industrial properties. The other is there's some key pieces or facts that are relevant that are in comprehensive plans, some of the housing studies, some of the other industrial market studies, when we take a look at the area. And one thing I would note is that when we're looking at the area from an industrial perspective, it's not just Brainerd proper. It actually, when deed looks at it, et cetera, it extends all the way down into the St. Cloud region. So just kind of keep that in mind because we're competing with multiple areas when it comes to the industrial areas. What's in your comp plan today is that about 10% of workers in Brainerd work in either construction or manufacturing. Those tend to be located in industrial areas. That's a pretty high percentage when you take a look at the overall workforce. According to, this is a real estate firm, JLL, the Midwest is going to need a lot more industrial land than it already has. 275 million square feet of modern warehouse product by 2025. That's a lot. 2025, of course, is not that long away. This is probably extended a little bit out. One thing to note when we talk about modern warehouse, there's a lot of automation that's going on in warehouse right now. And there's also a lot of demand for taller clear heights. So whereas before a lot of our older structures have, 18-foot clear heights, 20, 22, most larger users at this point are actually looking for 30 and above, up to 40. In some markets, it's actually going even taller than that, and they're stacking. So they're doing, through automation, they're able to stack things higher. So the warehouse and what it looks like is changing quite a bit, and it's constantly evolving. our firm just did a huge study actually on freight movements, warehousing, e-commerce, and the way that these users are using the space is very different. Obviously, from a manufacturing perspective, they have slightly different demands. However, the automation piece is playing a really big role. In terms of what challenges Brainerd, obviously, as you all know, we are not on a major interstate. That creates problems in terms of who your industrial users are going to be. So for example, I was just talking about some of the e-commerce users. They absolutely demand access to the interstates. In fact, what's kind of interesting is even down in the Twin Cities, we're still not a major hub, if you will, for the e-commerce industry, which is one of the biggest that's kind of trending upwards in terms of demand for space. As a lot of brokers call it, Minnesota's sort of the cul-de-sac or the end of the line before you get to Canada. So unless you're going to cross over into Canada, which doesn't usually happen, we're the cul-de-sac. So we're not the through, we're the cul-de-sac, which dictates how big our sizes of our facilities are going to be. It also dictates where they're going to be located most efficiently. So that creates some challenges, obviously, here because we don't have one of those major interstates, but it's still an area that does connect into the greater Minnesota area, the Dakotas, et cetera, and also if you're going to jump into Canada. So as everybody knows, we still have low unemployment. Brainerd is still challenged from the standpoint of we don't have enough housing, so even if we did locate here, we don't have housing for the workers. So there's a couple of things that are at play in terms of the industrial areas and their ability to be absorbed by the market. So I bring those up just because they play into how we developed our concepts. So if we could go to the next slide. Oh, well, that got funky. So I'll do my best to summarize what was on here. This was also in your packets. So we've basically got the two areas in terms of the industrial that we're taking a look at. So as a refresher, we've got the Wright Street extension, and then we've got TC Drive, that industrial park. The key difference between those two is that the Wright Street extension is actually unplatted land, meaning we don't have really a configuration laid out for it. In terms of the platted lots that are in your industrial park, those have specific lot lines and parcel lines. It's been platted. It's more shovel ready. There's a trail network through it. FedEx is already there. So it has a little bit different character like when you compare the two spaces or the two properties in terms of how ready it is to go for an industrial user to just come in and build. So both of them obviously have benefits. Both of them are pretty significant amount of land in terms of their ability to support an industrial user. But from the standpoint of which one is more ready, obviously it would be the existing industrial park that's already platted with FedEx. So our approach to doing the concept plan was essentially we took sort of a base map, which we'll look at in just a moment, laid on wetlands, topography, took a look at where the buildable areas might be, and then tried to think through what types of users might go in here and how might we lay out the properties. So that includes actually for our platted property on TC Drive, because we know that while there's some industrial that has gone in there, there's still a lot of vacant properties. So what can we do with it? So if we go to the next slide. So we'll start with the Wright Street extension. The first thing that we did is actually just put together sort of our base map as our framework of where are the existing roads, what are the property boundaries, what are the wetlands. We took a look at topography, what would be the areas that would be most buildable in terms of siting different uses. You can tell here we've got a fair amount of land in this area. There's land south that is sort of contiguous and borders the creek, and there's some water down there. On the north side, there's already existing industrial that's abutting it on the west, and then it's pretty empty or vacant to the east. So if we think about those as character defining pieces when we do the concept plan, it starts to tell us what kind of uses we might take a look at. So if we go to the next slide. All right, so we kind of thought outside the box on this one because there's quite a bit of land. And so we met as a consultant group about 2 weeks ago, I think, And we talked a little bit about how we might be able to mix in some other uses besides just industrial, because if we take a look at the land area associated with Wright Street and the land associated with TC, if it's all industrial, it's quite a bit of industrial land to try to develop and sell. If you remember, I also mentioned the part, we need housing. So if there's a way to utilize some of the land that we already have for housing, there might be a way to get both. So we would get businesses, some industrial, and also be able to get some residential. So we played around with a couple different combinations of how this might lay out. It seems most likely that we would want to blend in with the existing industrial that already exists to the west. So you can see here by this concept, which our blob's got a little bit misaligned here, so I'll make sure to try to clear this up. If you're to the west of Kitty Hawk Court, all of that is industrial. The way it looks right now is there's some residential creeping over, but that is not the case. The intent is everything to the west of that roadway would be industrial. South of Wright Street, this could be a combination. You could actually have more industrial down here. We played around actually with this whole space also being industrial, but we also took a stab at integrating some apartments as well. So we've got a little bit of industrial that would blend into the west, maybe an apartment, maybe some row homes, some other high density kind of residential use, and then a little bit of a smaller, tighter residential pattern to the east of Kitty Hawk Court. Now, once again, that could also be townhomes. There's no reason we couldn't swap that out too. We were using CN2 as our base zoning district in those, which I think goes up to 4-plex, if my memory is right, or a 5-plex. So that could be any combination of things, but the idea was to say, could we have some residential that's commingled with this, meet some of our housing demands while still having some industrial. So in these concepts, we have somewhere around 100 apartments, row homes, 30 residential lots, and still about 100,000 square feet of new industrial. So just a further breakdown to give you a sense of how the building sizes associate with the lot sizes. You can see that the industrial is somewhere between 15 and 30,000 essentially. In the marketplace, those are smaller users typically, but they're also very consistent with some of your current industrial users. Obviously, you could blend two parcels together, make a larger 50 or 60,000 foot building or facility. As I said, our firm has actually been doing a lot of research on industrial and freight and e-commerce. And in our market, there seems to be a little bit of a sweet spot going on right now, somewhere between about 30 to 40,000 square feet and just shy of 100,000 square feet in terms of users. So these are a little bit on the smaller size, but you could see how you could combine a couple lots, make a larger facility, et cetera. 5 is denoted as the apartments. That we played around with could easily also swap out to be an industrial user as well down there. You could shift the apartments over. The idea is to just start thinking about how we might commingle these types of uses together, and whether that's something that the EDA is interested in. All right, so next slide. Jump through TC Drive 2, and then we can go back with any questions you guys have about the concepts. So here, once again, we've got existing FedEx out there, kind of right in the middle. Not a bad thing, it's just kind of anchors the whole area at the moment. We've got several other parcels that would all be available on the smaller side, once again, supporting those smaller industrial scale buildings. But we still have quite a bit of buildable land that's out here. Next slide. So here we have 2 concepts for you, because obviously we've already got platted lots. We did a build out using all industrial, and then we have another more creative concept too for you guys to think about. This one, if you build this out, max it out, you have about 260,000 square feet of new industrial that goes into this area. Further breakdown to give you a sense of the sizes, the facilities are a little bit bigger on this concept. These are hitting kind of in that sweet spot of the market where we've been at least seeing quite a bit of action, and where a lot of the brokers are suggesting that they're interested in. You have opportunities for a smaller scale on number 2 for 15,000 square feet, all the way up to 31,000 about, plus or minus. Once again, we took a look at, there might be an opportunity to combine parcels here as well. So if somebody did want that larger 60,000 square foot, facility, that could easily be accommodated here. The other thing with your trail that kind of loops around this area, we thought what could be actually really cool is on 8 and 9 in that area might be a really sweet spot for like a brewery or a distillery or that sort of creative industrial type of use. There's a lot of those facilities that then have some outdoor space. Might be a pretty cool amenity and something interesting to contemplate. Concerts would be cool. All right, so here's the second concept. This one's a little bit more out there in terms of creative thinking because it's not just a pure industrial. So the idea here would be to have some pure industrial that exists and then also look at maybe some creative maker space that could have some live work opportunities. There's a little bit of this going on down in the cities and it's actually been received really well. It's also happening in some other markets. I could see it doing well here just given the population. I put a couple of sample graphics on the right-hand side because sometimes I think it's hard to think about, well, what would a live work with industrial look like? Because I think a lot of times we think of industrial as being a little bit dirty, but it doesn't always have to be. So a couple of concepts are on the right-hand side. You can see on the upper image, for example, that they had like a, somebody who was doing some auto repair or whatever it was. So they had a taller garage and then they had an apartment that was connected to it, but really well designed and interesting and could provide some different opportunities in that area and a different housing type that doesn't currently exist in the city. So next slide. This is a little bit of a breakdown. You can see 6, 7, 8, and 9 are sort of that cluster of creative industrial. The way it's laid out right now is there's some residential that's separate, but it could be combined in one facility, kind of like what I showed you in the images. There would potentially just be some opportunity in that sort of central area. The idea, once again, is to capitalize on there's the wetland area, there's the trail that kind of loops around it, and the idea that you might have some, a cabinet maker or a welder or whoever it is that could benefit by having their office or their workspace connected to their living arrangement. So those are the two concepts for that site. And then obviously we've got the Wright Street. Wright Street, there's a lot more flexibility because there's just a lot of land up there. So with that though, I'm happy to answer any questions or if you think they're just crazy, tell us that too. Because the idea here is we'd like to make sure that we're headed in the right direction. Then we can firm up the graphics. We would likely need to pass them over to the Planning Commission who would want to talk about this because there might be some changes that would have to happen from the zoning or land use perspective. So
very good. Thank you so much for the presentation. We'll just kind of break the dialogue up into 3 groups here. General conversation, and then we'll go specifically to Wright Street, and then TC Drive. So any just general questions, comments for Jennifer or anything? Please.
I'll say in general, I'm open to opening it up to more residential options, especially Wright Street because it's closer to that neighborhood. But clearly that's what we need more. So we should be open to opening that up.
Yeah.
And the denser the better, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, please, Gabe.
I would agree with Mike. I mean, we'd like to have a business on Kitty Hawk Court, but we need housing. And when you look east of Kitty Hawk Court, it is developable farmland right now that we could extend housing into in the future. I kind of like that idea.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Yeah, I'm kind of on the same wavelength here. Just as a global presentation, I'm thinking you don't replat now for what you think is going to be the best concept. You just splash all these out there. I would be leaning towards just showing or advertising all concepts and just hope that something sticks or somebody wants to run with one of them would be my hope, So let's go into specifics here. Does anybody have any specific questions for the Kitty Hawk? We'll start with the Kitty Hawk version first. Or Wright Street, I should say.
I will say We toured this with BPU's department head last week, 2 different groups, and they are interested in putting up a solar farm and expanding our solar farm operations out that way. There's even talk about leasing the field to the east for that, but there's nothing set in stone with that, and it's only in the case that we don't sell it or develop it in some way. So just have that in the back of your mind, but I would much rather see apartments, row houses, townhomes, anything like that.
Yeah, awesome. There's also, I said on the HRA, so this is just absolutely running right through my mind about what the potential for residential use might be here, especially with partnering with HRA and EDA working together to just get some momentum going here. So I was really excited to see a residential mindset potentially playing out here, or a combination of the two. So I have nothing further on the Wright Street. Looks good. And again, I'd like to see all of this advertised on our website, the more residential side, the commercial side, and then just as a large parcel unplatted. So anything else? All right, very good. We'll go on. We'll move on to see if anybody has any comments or questions specifically pertaining towards TC Drive. Anything?
Just say it's been sitting for a long time.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Anything.
Anything, yeah, absolutely. And if, I mean, I'm thinking, yeah, same thing on the residential or the makers, that seems just anything, right? Construction in general, so.
Residential out there, I think, would be a little tougher because you're way out on the edge of town, but everyone has cars now. It's not like we can't build something for the residential side of it. In talking with one of the developers that I've been in contact with this year, one of the things is employee housing nearby is like something that is what they're looking for. And you could do a combination of that with this, you know, apartments either on the back end or on the front end, and some type of manufacturing facility in the back. And that's your employee housing for you. So again, I'm open to looking at anything.
Yeah. Yeah, Gabe.
Yeah, a few of the industrial owners I know who operate businesses in the industrial park have trouble finding employees, obviously, but when they find good employees, quite often, the employees have trouble finding housing. So having housing nearby, I think, is a great idea. But I agree with you, Mr. Chair, that the more concepts, the better. You know, if you don't know, I'm not a big fan of government in general. So we shouldn't really be telling people what to be doing with land that they're buying, and right? So keep it open, keep an open mind that if something is going to work for a business, we should work with them to get it done. So I think the more ideas and more concepts we have, the better, because it might, you know, a light bulb might go off in a developer's head.
Yeah, agreed. Anything else? All right, very good. Thank you so much for the time and effort here. Obviously, we may be using these in some of our advertising and stuff coming up, so thank you so much. And with that, we'll move, yeah, please.
While Jennifer is here, I just had a question on the property listings, and Mary just presented the new design for the logo and everything. Is that going to start getting integrated then, like the property listings having kind of more the look of and feel of the new logo and the website and so forth?
So when obviously you approved the logo today, which is great, we can get that on all of our materials as soon as we have it. So now that you've approved it, it's very easy to pop that on. Actually, the colors are, they're Brainerd E. So when we put the property page together, we deliberately tried to use Brainerd colors, thinking that there would probably be a connection. So I think the flavor or the character of our property page is very similar. Obviously, we haven't seen the full website design yet. That's going on for the EDA, but we can easily utilize the tagline, the logo, we have like a place on our page for the logo, for instance, so we'll just update that as soon as we have it. So I think from a branding perspective, it's very easy to do. Put the logo on our one-pagers so that if somebody prints it off, it's got the Brainerd EDA logo on it, those types of things. So I think the first step is we need to get the logo, but you just approved it. And then get the tagline, and then we can update some of those materials.
So is the idea that the Brainerd Properties website is going to be its own standalone thing, or is that going to be integrated with the EDA or the economic development?
Yep.
Website?
So we haven't 100% decided yet because it has to do with how you build out the EDA website, which obviously is still in the works, and then also hosting and who's going to be responsible for keeping the page updated and all of those things. No matter what, they're going to be married in some way, for lack of a better way of saying it. Either that the properties will be a page on your EDA that then brings you to that listing, or it will be fully embedded within the EDA's website. It just remains to be seen because it comes down to who's hosting it, managing it. If our firm is responsible for keeping the properties up to date, you maybe don't want our firm responsible for the whole EDA website, for example. So some of that just has to be decided in terms of who's hosting it, who's managing it, who's responsible for keeping the data up to date, et cetera. And I think some of those things just haven't been flushed out yet.
And right now, it looks like it's just kind of housing all of that information, but when I searched for it, it's not like widely searchable, or like when I search like EDA properties, it's not coming up very high in the search results. So is there like a plan to kind of build more SEO around that so that it is showing up higher in search results, or is that kind of like, maybe that's more of a longer term project? I saw that we're discussing next, like the consultants agreements for 24, and maybe that's kind of rolled up into that. But.
So again, and some of it comes back to once we decide how it's going to be hosted and where it's going to live, then you develop your SEO plan around it, whether it's organic or paid. So we do a fair amount at our firm in terms of just trying to get our organic following up because it's cheaper, obviously. And some of that is just making sure that the content is fresh and constantly updated and referenced. So some of it has to do with that. At the moment, we were just building it. So of course, there's not a lot of hits. There's not a lot of people that are using it. And so it's keeping it updated, keeping it fresh, making sure there's constant, information on it that becomes new. Some of that SEO strategy, though, really does come down to how it's then integrated with your overall website and what that strategy is. So I think those are all things, from what I understand, that will be sort of fleshed out in the first quarter of next year. This year we were in the building stage, if you will, of our website, the properties website. First quarter of next year is sort of how do we blend those two together? What's the strategy, and how do we get all the information out there and available to people easily?
Sure. Thank you.
Yep.
Very good, thank you. All right, we'll move on to the consideration of our consultant agreements for 2024. This is on page 31 of your packet. James, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So at the August 3rd EDA board meeting, the board approved a preliminary tax levy request of $186,812, which is the maximum EDA fund allowed by state statute. The request was forwarded to City Council for consideration. As we discussed here, the consultants continue to work and complete their 2023 goals and objectives. Staff did include a potential list of scope of services for 2024 that would be kind of in addition to the standard things we do, such as consultant meetings and such. With that, staff does see potentially a similar budget to 2023 of $137,000 for consultants. Obviously, some things may be changed out. The website's going to be, pretty much ready to go. So there might be some things that are changed out for some things that might have to be added in for 2024. So with that, also leaving potentially some, not spending all the money would allow the EDA to begin looking at potentially a revolving loan fund as well to, potentially on Highway 210, do facade improvements through some type of revolving loan fund. So staff is looking at, potentially maybe the EDA doesn't spend the full amount. Also, one thing to begin to consider is looking at marketing some of our properties that we have here, and that'd be through a potential realtor. Staff did include that in one of the recommendations in order to, sell these properties. We should start marketing them in other places, but, certainly it would also be on the EDA website. So with that, staff has 3 recommendations for the EDA to consider. Approve staff to begin working with the current consultants on their 2024 scope of services and present a new contract to the EDA at the December meeting. The consultants should present their accomplishments at this meeting, similar to what we had done last year, talk about what they had done in 2023, and then what their plans are for 2024. Also direct staff to work with Camp Realty, which is Jennifer Haskamp's realty company, on a proposal to market available Brainerd properties and present it at the December meeting. If you do have questions for Jennifer, she could probably answer those on what that contract may kind of look like, and then that could be presented at the December meeting as well. And then also direct staff to research job descriptions, duties, and salaries for a potential executive director position of the EDA and present that at the February 2024 EDA meeting. If that's something that the EDA would like to move forward with in the future, at least you have some type of an understanding of what that would look like. For next year, staff is recommending going with the consultants as we're still putting stuff together for the website and working on transitioning of where, who's going to be hosting this website in the future and how that's going to go. So staff is recommending continuing with the consultants for next year. With that, I can certainly answer any questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you, James. So we'll just keep this kind of broken up into the 3 key parts here. We'll start with the scope of services. So do we have any dialogue, questions, comments for staff or anyone else regarding kind of moving forward with the 2024 scope of services? No. Sorry, real quick. James, would you like to see 3 different motions on this, or just are we looking for direction here on each of the different items separately, or how would you like to see this?
I would say, 3 different motions.
3 different motions. Very good. Yes, please, Mr. O'Day.
I was just curious because I was not present at the workshop. I don't know where this master planning trailside park came in. I don't remember talking about it. Maybe I'm just not remembering, but is that something that was discussed at the last meeting?
James?
There has been discussions on it. If there were a next project to potentially concept plan, and it wouldn't have to be in there, but I think it'd be good for you to potentially discuss here so the consultants have an understanding. I know the park board potentially is open to, not having that as park property. There was some initial discussions on it, but really not a full direction on doing that.
Yes, very good. And I'll just jump in on just what the park board, some of the dialogue that's been surrounding the park board. The park board has actually looked at other areas, even surrounding Buffalo Hills, where we have a fair amount of landmass that we just currently have not ever used. So, as well as trailside. So I think that the park board, at least the basic summary of what I've gathered over the last year, is that they're pretty open to using that land for something better, especially if there's a way to help use that land to generate revenue for the park board to maintain what they've got. So don't know what that looks like, but I think there's a lot of options open to us. Mr. Johnson, please.
Yeah, we talked about it at the HRA a little bit, and those housing consultants that the real estate group brought in did tour that property, and they're going to be giving us their recommendations mid-October or something like that. And, it sounds like they were very interested in giving a proposal or something for Trailside Park because it doesn't have utilities. It's on the very far edge of town. It's a location real estate agents love. So we're going to be getting a proposal on it, probably, but we'll have to wait like a month and see what those concepts come back as.
Yeah, excellent. And some of the dialogue there has a great connection to Wise, which is right to 371. So it's potentially a high desirability parcel over there for something. So
right. And if there's multiple areas that the park board is interested in looking at developing or considering developing, we could kind of do that as a group of properties if we wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. And it might be time to get the 2 together just once we have something that's more identifiable to say, hey, these are potential areas where the land could be reworked for something else. Okay, so do we have any thoughts, anybody, on the scope of services here for next year, 2024? You can see what the math plays out. Staff is recommending that we continue working. It seems like we're kind of midstream on working with these, with our partners here. All right, if there's no discussion, then we'll be looking for a motion to move forward, or a motion regarding what to do with our consultants for 2024.
Motion to approve staff for point number 1.
Very
Second.
good. Yeah, we got a motion, a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Very good. Thank you. So we'll move on now to the camp realty portion of this. This is obviously looks like there's some type of partnership here. Jennifer, maybe would you please come up? I think we might have a couple questions here. I think I do. Just of what this looks like with the camp realty portion and how this might might commingle, might work together here. Just a brief overview.
Sure. So obviously, I own Swanson Hascamp Consulting. I also own a real estate and development brokerage called Camp Real Estate and Development. The idea is that the properties that we're talking about, we would be able to, through our brokerage, push out to the world the larger brokerage communities. So it would be able to go on, for example, Mincar, LoopNet, all the major commercial sites that different brokers or developers would be looking at to get more visibility for the properties that are for sale. So it would actually be the listing of those properties to be able to start reaching a broader audience. I have to be very careful because as a licensed broker, I have to live by certain rules in terms of how I can pump things out to the world. So right now I'm sort of skirting on it just in terms of putting all the materials together. In order to do like broker blasts, for example, like to send it out into like all of the lists, you get like a list of all the brokers that are in the industrial market, for example. In order to do that, I have to have an agreement with you that I can actually represent you to sell the property in the event we find someone who wants to buy it. So that's the idea behind it. Obviously, the specifics would be worked out, would be presented to you in December for you guys to consider in terms of how the compensation structure looks, what the arrangement would be, how we would make that agreement. James and I have talked just briefly about it, especially because the idea is that whoever the buyer is the one who would be responsible for paying those brokerage fees. So how we would put that together and sort of that next step would be presented to you in December.
Very good. Any questions?
I do have
Yeah, please.
one. So some of these properties, or a lot of these industrial properties, we do offer at like $1 an acre if you're going to bring jobs to town.
Yep.
And I don't know how that works for a realtor to be involved, because if something,
It's a-
6% of a dollar is roughly.
well, I mean,
So-
I'm not saying that you would block a deal, but it sure would be a reason to, if you weren't going to make any money on it. So I'm hesitant to get a realty company involved because of that reason. It has happened before on these properties, trying to expand the value of the
Yep.
land. So you would make more money if you were selling it as a residential or some other type of property. So I'm just a little hesitant. I know that I trust you, but any realtor would have reason to block industrial development just for that reason.
Jennifer, please. Yeah, I'll let you answer first. I have just a follow-up.
Sure. Real estate companies do represent cities all the time, even in the, we'll sell this for, to you for $1. Essentially what you put in the agreement or when you put it out there is that they will be responsible for the brokerage fees. So you set whatever that is based on the market value of the property or some other, lump sum, whatever it is. And then you sell it at that, and it's already agreed to in terms of the terms. So when you're a broker, you actually have to indicate how you're going to compensate the other party and how you intend to be compensated. So there really shouldn't be holding anyone hostage for anything because you have to lay out the terms and say what it is. So the idea would be we would put a contract together that would explicitly state how that works. So if somebody comes in, they want to buy it for $1, what are the brokerage fees they're responsible for, which are going to be on the city's side, but then also on their buy side as well, if they're using a broker to represent themselves in the transaction. So basically, we would iron all that out, which would be part of what we would talk about in December to make sure it's perfectly clear. My goal is to help you get rid of it. I have zero intention of holding your industrial park hostage. I've been working with the city for far too long and would love to see something happen there. So,
Yep, thank you. Yeah, please.
I would just like to add that it's been on the market for $1 for like 7 years. So I think we know what the market rate of this land is, and it's less than $1.
Yeah, thank you. And I was just going to chime in on this. This feels like the type of thing I would normally say, oh, we should put out an RFP for this, for who would represent us. Because there is, even though it's only for sale for $1, there's potentially a lot of money in brokerage fees and the transaction that could potentially be made by a realtor or a firm that makes all this happen. So it feels like the type of thing that I would just say, oh, we should put out an RFP first and see if there's anybody else. Not that there's anything, and Camp may very well be the best fit, but just to see if anybody else comes out of the work and says, hey, I have an idea on what to do here. But I also see the side of, if this were to be represented by you, there's tremendous pressure for you to perform if this were to be taken under, because this speaks to the entire success of the whole program. So I would think you would have more invested in getting these sold or moved than anybody else who would possibly come to the table. So I can see that angle also, just because if we were to move forward with Camp and started moving some of these properties, it puts you in a much stronger position of leverage contractually with moving forward with the city, working with the city, all of that, versus if they don't go anywhere. So I guess I'm mixed on this, but my feeling is I'd be good with just moving forward with having you turn in a proposal, what that might look like, and show us how you're going to sell all these in the next 6 months. That'd be great. So.
ooh, 6 months ago, I should write that down.
Or less. That's that's the long window. But no.
Good to know.
So unless anybody else has anything else, I'll be looking for a motion here to at least direct staff to work with Camp on a proposal, and make sure nobody else feels like we should put this out for a larger RFP while we're working with Camp for a proposal.
I motion to get a proposal
From Camp.
from Camp.
Okay, very good. We have a motion. Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I hear everything you just said, and I tend to agree with you, but it's a razor's edge, and I still fall on that side where we're a government entity. I think it should go out to proposal, and we should see what all real estate firms can do for us instead of just giving the contract to one. But I'll support it to see the proposal next month and see what happens.
Absolutely. There's nothing saying we can't come back with and make a change. So any other discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Very good. We'll be looking forward to this proposal. All right, we'll move on to item number 3, which is the staff to research job description, potentially an exec. How does anybody given this any thought? Any discussion or questions for staff on what we might do with an executive director position for the EDA?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please. Sorry.
Conceptually, I love having an executive director for the EDA. Having somebody full-time dedicated to economic development in Brainerd, it's a great idea. But we're our own legal entity, right? We're not the city of Brainerd, right? They let us use this for our meetings for free, and we appreciate it. I suppose we do have a contract with them. But if we were to hire an executive director, we would need to find office space, we would need to find a meeting location, we would need to find all types of things. Being an independent legal entity, it would basically sever the ties from the city, because this EDA executive director wouldn't be a city employee. It would be employed directly by this board, accountable to nobody but this board. And I just don't know. I'm interested in seeing the research of all that, but I don't know if we're actually ready or have the financial backing with only $170,000 a year or whatever it is to actually move forward with a full-time employee to actually have any resources to accomplish anything other than sit in our newly found office that we're leasing.
Right. Anybody else? Any other thoughts?
I'm interested in seeing what the general description and duties and salary would be, just to know what, you know, in the future, where do we need to be to afford somebody to do this? But I think we have, right now, with all of our consulting and everything we have going on, we have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and we're trying to bring it all together into one big package. I think in the future, this would be a good idea. I just don't think we're quite there yet. So I think it's good to just at least research it and know, maybe for the next few years, as we consider that.
Other thoughts, anyone? Yeah, I'll just chime in. I'm feeling kind of the same way, but much to your point, I was going to say, it's not just the job description and duties, it's just how having an executive director would change the overall umbrella of what we are, how we operate. So if we are going to move forward and direct staff to look into job descriptions, I'd also like to further that a little bit further and just into the other dynamics that we're not talking about, just besides what an exec would look like, but how it would affect us, what it would really cost, and how it would, change the money, and as well as just how we would operate, right? So that's my only thought, is if somebody does make a motion, is to expand that to beyond the job description to just everything else.
I'd make that motion.
Yeah, very good. Motion?
Second.
Second? Got lots of seconds, so we got a second by Johnson there.
Third and fourth.
Yeah, we got third and fourth. All right, any further discussion? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Very good. Thank you. All right. Anything else that I'm missing here? If not, we're going to move on to our staff reports. Who'd like to start? Eric.
Be happy to.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the EDA. Just a couple updates. Progress continues with our project redevelopment over at the Thrifty, the 805 Laurel. The good news is for the Deed Main Street program, for those dollars that they qualified for, they did get the grant signed. They expect that first disbursement from Deed to be coming any day if it hasn't already gone. So it does look like those dollars will be utilized completely, and that takes that one out of the question mark column, which we all know and are happy about. On the flip side, Deed, we also, Brainerd HRA on behalf of the developer, applied for a redevelopment grant in the amount of just over $500,000. We just learned on Monday that we did not get that grant. I could be down on that, but the good news is there's another funding round in February. And I think the timing of when they will be starting to actually move ground probably played into that decision as far as the funding on this round. I do have a follow-up discussion with the developer and with Deed, the director that runs that program, next Thursday. Hope to glean a little bit more information, but I think we've got a good opportunity to still get funding for that, just not today, which I can understand. And again, just trying to push forward with that redevelopment, trying to cobble together dollars for them. We did learn from Minnesota Housing that the RFP for their workforce housing grant, which is the biggest portion of their public funding requests, will not be released until at least the end of November. And Minnesota Housing continues to struggle with trying to hire enough people to get out all of the dollars that they've been gifted by the state. So hopefully by the end of November, we know what that RFP looks like. We have a date and timeline for when those applications are due, but that's the big one for them. And we're going to support them as much as we can. They do need some matching dollars from us for that grant opportunity, or from all of the entities, from Brainerd HRA, Crow Wing County HRA, to make those dollars come back. And so we're going to continue to push on that. That's my update.
Very good. Thank you, Eric, and appreciate you staying in the fight. Some things are going to start going your way soon. They've got it, right? James, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple things to add. So at the next City Council meeting, be holding a public hearing and performing second reading for a potential off-street parking ordinance. I think we've been talking about multifamily and housing. I think this certainly could be a benefit to developers by not, requiring as much parking for commercial apartment development. So stay tuned for that. And then also in addition to that, Planning Commission's working on a short-term rental ordinance. Planning Commission kind of sets forth a schedule of things to work on. After that, staff's going to be recommending something that we've talked about in the EDA, which would be potential mixed-use development in the commercial corridor district, which is Highway 210. So that is going to be staff's recommendation. We'll see what Planning Commission wants to work on next, but I think that hopefully should be coming forward fairly soon.
Very good. Everything. Thank you. Connie, anything? Anyone else? All right. We'll move on to our commission member reports. Mike, you have anything?
I don't think I have anything to add. Thanks.
Rasul?
No.
All right, I have nothing.
Just wanted to plug, we have Spooktacular coming up at the end of the month in downtown, so be sure to come check that out on Saturday, the 28th. And DDBC is also hosting the last Business Owner Social of the year on October 25th. That's a Wednesday, so 5 p.m. I can come over to Last Turns Loon, so we just extend an invitation to any commissioners that want to come and attend that.
All right, thank you.
I just want to say thank you to the consultants that came in today. I appreciate all the work that you guys are doing, and good job.
Thank you. Yes,
I
please.
got three things. I want to thank all the commissioners who came in today. I appreciate all of you. But two other things. The city budget, I don't know if you saw, our preliminary levy increase was ridiculous. It was like $700,000 increase to include everything that everybody asked for. So we did, in the preliminary, we do have enough money to fund the EDA's request, but we also held the airport flat when they increased a request. The library asked for more. We held them flat. HRA asked for their max. They got a little increase, but trimmed down from what the request was. So the EDA is at risk of getting a little haircut on our budget this year because we're looking for about $400,000 in spending decreases at the council. So just a heads up on that. And then secondly, the Minnesota Twins won a playoff series last night for the first time in 21 years, over half of my life ago. So I've been waiting a while, and I'm kind of happy about that. So I'd like to commend the Twins.
I'll second that. I was there, and it was electric down there. So now, we're moving on to beat the Houston Astros, which will undoubtedly happen. So very good. And with that, we will be looking for an adjournment.
So moved.
We got all right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you, everyone.